Coming up on Market to Market, the tariff truce with China gets a second extension well before the hammer drops. A look at the last 10 years of this show as our 50th season comes to a close. And commodity market analysis with Mark Gold next.
What's next doesn't happen by chance. It happens when researchers and farmers work together to solve tomorrow's agronomic challenges. We're committed to creating what's next. Because at Pioneer, our name is our mission.
Family owned and operated for more than 60 years, Sukup Manufacturing is a full-service provider of grain handling, storage, and drying equipment, helping farmers feed and fuel the world.
Tomorrow. For over 100 years, we've worked to help our customers be ready for tomorrow. Trust in tomorrow. Information is available from a Grinnell Mutual agent today.
This is the Friday, August 15 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Paul Yeager. The effect of the tariffs on imported products are beginning to show in several economic indices. Two measures of the economy are showing an inflation rate higher than the Fed would like to see. Retail sales climbed 0.5% in July, but the increase may be influenced partly by higher prices brought on by higher tariffs. A jump in prices paid at the wholesale level last month surprised economists with a 0.9% increase, the largest move in 3 years. The annual rate hit 3.3%, again above expectations. The Consumer Price Index increased 0.2% on a combination of higher prices for dining out and slightly lower gasoline prices. The year-over-year rate moved up by 2.7%. The Fed prefers a 2% inflation rate. According to the Yale Budget Lab, the average import tariff is 18.6%. Now, you're already paying a 50% duty for Brazilian coffee and may pay that rate for pharmaceuticals from India if a trade deal isn't reached by August 27. In rural America, farmers and manufacturers are still working out how to plan for the future. Peter Tubbs has more.
This week, President Trump again delayed raising tariffs on China for another 90 days. The current tariff on imports of most Chinese goods stands at 10%. Tariffs on imports from dozens of other countries also went into effect. Last week, during an appearance at the Iowa State Fair, USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins reminded farmers of the litany of trade announcements the White House has made in the last month.
Of course, very significant to this incredible state are the trade deals that keep coming and coming and coming, whether it is the UK, the EU, South Korea, Pakistan, Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, just as a few examples. The next round of deals will be announced in the coming week, ushering in a golden age for America.
Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig believes the tariffs are assisting the trade negotiation process.
And they're negotiating all over the place. So I do think this is going to continue to take some time. But we also stressed both to the Secretary and to the Undersecretary that there's a real urgency to this profitability and price piece. And trade is one component of that, but we got to keep the wheels moving.
Aaron Lehman of the Iowa Farmers Union is concerned about farmers' ability to market commodities in an uncertain trade environment.
Now, we've got issues to work through. We've always had, and we will continue to work for fairer trade, something that makes more sense for farmers in the field and in their pasture, as opposed to just numbers. We want it to make a real difference for farmers. But this approach isn't getting us there, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
For Market to Market, I'm Peter Tubbs.
On October 24, 1975, Iowa Farm Digest had its first broadcast. The following year, the show began national syndication as Farm Digest. 50 seasons later, we are still here, and we adhere to those same reporting principles that have been in place for 5 decades. As near as we can tell, we remain the longest-running nationally syndicated program of its kind on public television. In our final installment of Retrospectives for Market to Market, David Miller looks back at the most recent 10 years of this show in our cover story.
Edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson.
In 2016, farmers were facing the third year of declining profits. As a way to help unlock more export potential for U.S. producers, President Barack Obama signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The deal was designed to allow 12 countries that touch the Pacific Ocean to lower trade barriers. The pact, which shut out China, met with defeat as the Senate refused to bring the measure up for a vote. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers temporarily halted construction of the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline project. The last mile of the oil pipeline was eventually connected in 2017. As the year rolled over, we were following the next phase of the 2015 nitrate pollution lawsuit between the Des Moines Water Works and several Iowa agricultural drainage districts. The Iowa Supreme Court ruled the drainage districts had immunity from the charges under state law. A federal court threw out the case and ended DMWW's pursuit of a win. President Donald Trump slapped a 20% tariff on Canadian lumber. He was hoping the tactic would open the taps for U.S. dairy producers trying to do business with the nation's #2 trading partner. The trade skirmish eventually led to Trump abandoning the 24-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement and the start of negotiations on the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. The USMCA was eventually adopted and went into effect in the middle of 2020. Our coverage in 2018 began with an in-depth report on how the opioid epidemic had hit the entire U.S., including rural America.
Market to Market.
Delaney Howell became the first female host of the show.
Hello, I'm Delaney Howell.
It was also the year that President Trump began a trade war with China. The war escalated to the point where everything traded between the planet's #1 and #2 economies had a tariff on it. Soybean exports to China plummeted to nothing, and farmers were hit hard. The government stepped in and gave qualified producers a slice of a $23 billion pie in the form of 2 market facilitation payments. Negotiations eventually led to the 2020 Phase 1 trade agreement. Under the terms, China would increase imports of U.S. agricultural products to $40 billion over 2 years. The biotechnology giant Bayer was sued over the alleged connection between cancer and the use of its signature weed killer, Roundup. A jury awarded the plaintiff $289 million. Getting the 2018 Farm Bill over the finish line was in doubt. The measure was signed in the waning days of December, just before the federal government went into a partial shutdown. African swine fever was front of mind in 2019, so much so that the National Pork Producers Council canceled the World Pork Expo over concern international visitors might bring the deadly disease into the U.S. In March of 2020, the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. The spread of the virus altered everything from how we interacted to how we did business. Eventually, Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. The CARES Act distributed more than $2 trillion to nearly every person and business in America. It was also the year Paul Yeager became the 5th full-time host of this program. Just after 2021 began, President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into law. Valued at more than $1.9 trillion, the measure provided funds for almost every segment of society. That year, the Supreme Court rejected another challenge by agricultural lobbying groups to strike down Proposition 12, the California law requiring more space for sows, egg-laying chickens, and veal calves. Prop 12 went into effect on January 1, 2022. H5N1, more commonly known as bird flu, came in with 2022 after a 2-year hiatus. In February of 2022, Russia rolled into Ukraine, starting a war that pushed the wheat market higher over uncertainty of the crop's fate. The drought tightened its grip on Texas, and nearly all of the state's 254 counties were declared disaster areas. Cattle producers who were losing money culled their herds. Orders at auctions were often filled quickly, forcing them to hold the excess inventory. By 2023, negotiations were underway for a new farm bill, but to no avail, and the 2018 Farm Bill was extended for another year. The same thing would happen again in 2024. Officials with the Navigator CO2 and Summit Carbon Solutions pipelines, two hotly debated projects, were laying the groundwork to establish pathways from the 5 major ethanol-producing states to hubs in Illinois and North Dakota. Both wanted to use eminent domain, if necessary, to pave the way forward. A raft of state regulations along those routes convinced Navigator to drop out. Summit has continued its work on the project. A 3-year-old dispute over Mexico blocking the import of GMO corn resulted in the U.S. asking for a dispute settlement panel to be assembled in accordance with the USMCA. Early in the spring of 2024, bird flu was found in the dairy herd. 41 people contracted the virus due to exposure to the infected cows. As we rolled into 2025, President Trump started another trade war. Only this time, it was with every country in the world. Deportations of undocumented agricultural workers created a labor gap during harvest. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, the second woman to head up the USDA, offered a way to fill that gap.
There are 34 million able-bodied adults in our Medicaid program. There are plenty of workers in America.
As our 50th season came to a close, we reported on a study placing increased nitrate levels in the drinking water supply of Iowa's capital city directly at agriculture's feet.
When I sit there and I think about the legacy of this program, I just go, wow, look at what we have done as a group over the past 50 seasons. And we've all had, over time, the same ideas of walking the center, making sure that everybody gets both sides of the issue, and allowing the viewer to decide what comes next for them.
And through it all, we talked prices, prices, and prices, with the likes of Ted Seifert, Christy Van Anchizeth, Ross Baldwin, and John Roach. For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.
Next, the Market to Market Report.
This week's WASDE was a mixed bag, bearish for coarse grains, but bullish for oilseeds as USDA reported a higher corn yield and fewer soybean acres. For the week, the nearby wheat contract fell 8 cents, and the September corn contract added a penny. Fewer soybean acres were reported by USDA, and a smaller stocks number gave a boost to the soy complex. The September soybean contract added 55 cents, while September meal improved $6.80 per ton. December cotton expanded by 94 cents per hundredweight. Over in the dairy parlor, September Class 3 milk futures declined a quarter. Livestock market was mixed. October cattle added $4.67. September feeders put on $6.97. October lean hogs fell 58 cents. In the currency markets, the U.S. dollar index dropped by 31 ticks. September crude oil lost 98 cents per barrel. COMEX gold decreased 78.30 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index was down by more than 3 points to settle at 535.85. Joining us now, regular market analyst Mark Gold. Hi, Mark.
Paul, nice to be here again.
Well, is it nice given this week? I mean, the names being thrown around for these markets are things we cannot say on television.
No, we can't.
Let's start with the thing that hasn't been positive for a long time, and that's the wheat market. It just seems to be, no matter what is said, grown, sold. Catch a falling knife was the term I saw emerge again this week. Is that the case?
Well, it's been pretty tough. We can't get rid of it. The dollar's been still relatively strong. It's backed off. We were over 100 points the other day. We're back down to 97.5 roughly. So that helps. The old low was 96. We needed under 96 again to take a shot at 90, and that could really help the wheat market out here. But when you look at who's growing wheat all over the world, the big surpluses, big crops, it's hard to make any inroads into that.
And there was a couple of questions that came in asking, we had to look at more acres, but it's like we didn't plant as much wheat this year.
No.
What if we would have, and what if we will next year? So do you think this is no condition to expand next year, is it?
I don't see that right now. I think you've got to wait till the overall environment changes a little bit. If we could get India to come on board and buy some wheat from us instead of Russia, that would certainly be helpful. But we don't really see, a whole lot there that's going to turn this market around, unless there's a major weather problem somewhere in the world. But it's been tough, and I don't see it getting great. But if we can get the corn to rally, maybe the wheat will go with it.
I'm going to steal this from, first I'll ask you there about, at 527 on December, what's the strategy that you should be looking at?
It's really tough to get people to be excited about buying put options at these low levels. I don't see it going a whole lot lower. Hopefully the dollar will keep moving lower. And I think we've kind of found a bottom in here a little bit. It's been tough though. Every time it looks like it's a bottom, we make another new bottom. We've broken through some good technical signals to make new lows. But are we going to go to $4.75? Are we going to go to $4? I don't see it, but as a risk manager, like I'll always say, at these kind of levels, buy a cheap put and hope you don't need it.
Let's move to corn if we could. The September contract somehow held on for a penny gain. Yeah. How is that possible?
December closed down a penny for the week. I called the report the Gomer Pyle report. Surprise, surprise, surprise. We had 3 surprises in that report. And the yield at 188.8, I don't see that that's going to be the final yield. Usually when the USDA comes out with a big number early, they tend to shave it over the next couple of months. I think that's what we're going to happen here. They're looking at these satellite pictures and deciding, look, it's green, it's tall, it's good. And I don't believe that. I think it's green, it's tall, but it might not be good. I think you see a lot of issues with this tar spot, with this tassel wrap, and some other significant problems out there. A lot of tip back in some of these fields. So does that make a 189 yield? I don't see that. But I think it's going to come down in time. I think what's important for the American farmer is the last couple of days, the reason we have been able to close within striking distance of last week is because the funds have started to cover some shorts in here. And that's a good thing for the market. They're still short about 130,000 contracts. I didn't see the commitment of traders as of Friday night yet. But if we get a point where we're even close to getting the funds out of these short positions between now and harvest, you've got to take a strong look at marketing some grain up there on that rally, because we're still going to have to get through the harvest. It's still going to be a big crop. Where are we going to put it all? And the other problem is, how much is still left on the farm from last year?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. We have had some export sales.
Yeah.
Do we have enough in the offing that can help keep us from falling any further here?
Well, you've got a $2 billion plus carryout out here, which is a big number. We need to see some new demand, either year-round ethanol, E15. We've got to do something positive for this corn market to start whittling down these numbers out here. If we could get a deal with China, it would still be helpful for the corn and the beans, maybe even wheat. So there are a lot of moving pieces. Right now, we've got to see what the result of the summit between President Putin and President Trump. I don't think there'll be anything concrete there. I don't see Zelensky giving up any land. We saw what happened in World War II, before World War II, when Chamberlain appeased Hitler and gave him the Sudetenland. They don't want to make that same mistake again. And Europe is very well aware of that. So I don't know if anything positive is going to come out, which tells me that he'll continue to put tariffs on Russia. He'll continue to penalize China if they buy oil from Russia, and India buying oil from Russia. That's not good. If we can solve that problem, then maybe things can pick up.
Usually when we talk about China, it's always about beans, but you're saying there's still that possibility they might be buying some more corn.
Yeah, it's possible out there.
So then with beans then,
Yeah.
with no trade deal in sight,
Yeah.
what is buoying this market?
Well, when you cut, 2.5 million acres, you cut 2.1 million acres out of the bean crop, yeah, they raised the yield a little bit, but now with the carryout we're looking at is 290. Lose 1 bushel an acre between now and harvest, and you got very tight stocks out there. So I think that's what's buoying the bean market. I think it's legitimate. If we get a carryout somewhere 250 or less, now we've got something that can push these markets to reasonable levels.
And late Friday, there's starting to be the word, this weather might actually become a story in the soybean market. It's starting to show up a dry part in Illinois that could spread. The farmers that I had talked to this week at the Iowa State Fair, they all had words to say about the corn, but the beans, they all kept saying, I just don't see it there.
Yeah.
Does Chicago believe that it's there yet?
I think the vast majority of people do. You can't have this amount of rain on the crop up to this point and not expect a pretty good crop. This is, I think, the first year, and I don't know how many years, there isn't one county in Iowa that's in drought from Thursday's report. There's been a lot of rain, but now we're getting to the pod filling stage on the beans. This next 2 weeks is critical, and if we turn hot and dry, we're going to knock something off these yields. So I think the beans have got a chance in here. I'm hopeful on the beans.
Okay, so that's a hopeful, holding, selling. What are you doing here?
Well, at this point, you got to keep a cheap put. We've rolled down puts. We did make some cash sales on Thursday, which we were happy with. We had a nice 65-cent rally in the beans. Okay, we sold 5% of our guaranteed bushels. That's just rewarding the market a little bit for what they've done out here. We still have an awful lot of beans left to sell. And if we do continue to move higher, we're going to continue to sell more grain. Until we can get those cash sales made, we're going to keep a put underneath us just in case something happens, if we don't get a trade deal.
What's happening in live cattle? Because you keep adding to this contract, and there's no reason to think that this party's over, is it?
Well, Secretary Rollins came out and said they're going to build this facility outside of Austin or near the border somewhere, and that they're not going to bring in any Mexican cattle. Yesterday, the rumor was that they might open it up. We broke hard in the cattle, came back today very strong. It's the wrong time of month to be making highs. We usually make the highs the last Thursday or Friday of the month. So the box beef made new highs after breaking $30, $35. It came back just under $400 this morning. It's unprecedented. Now we're getting some of that last minute Labor Day buying out here. But is the American housewife not going to go to something else, whether it's poultry or pork or fish or pasta or something else? I think they will soon.
I look at the prices every Saturday morning when I go and do the shopping and look and see that the protein, the chicken is still high. The pork is I don't see everybody buying that yet. They're still buying beef, but just not as much. Anecdotal, I know that's for another day.
Yeah.
Let's talk feeders for a minute.
Yeah.
Because again, the conversation this week has been about where can you find them.
Yeah.
You're finding them, but can you find enough to lean into this rally?
Not yet, but what you have to understand about markets is the markets will turn before the fundamentals justify it. We've seen that time and time again, whether it's in the grains or in the livestock. So people can continue to say, there's no cattle out there, there's no cattle out there, and all of a sudden the prices will go down. It'll be because, in my opinion, that the demand at the retail level, Miss America isn't going to buy high-priced beef. I mean, it's not just high-priced beef, it's historically high beef. And I think when it comes to a choice between hamburger or blending in some pork to make a meatloaf or something, that's going to happen more often out here. I think people, once we get past the Labor Day weekend and the grilling backs off, steak prices will come down. So I think we're in a period now, the next 2 weeks could be strong. But I've been saying that for 6 months. So.
Quickly on hogs, 10 seconds here. I mean, this didn't quite have much of a rally this week.
No, and I think the hogs are kind of a dog in this market. But, we've got plenty of hogs. We need to see a little bit more demand, and I think that's coming. So I think that'll help the hogs in the long run.
We'll see. We got to have something to talk about, right, when we have you back. All right. Mark Gold, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Nice to be here.
All right. Mark Gold, everyone. And you have been watching the analysis segment. And in a moment, we will continue in a discussion that's online, and it's only there online. Search Market Plus with Mark Gold wherever you get your podcast to hear that conversation, or you can go to our website of markettomarket.org. Sunday, August 24, 2025 will be the final edition of our 50th season tour. We are celebrating here in Johnston, and you are invited. Get all the details by going to our website of markettomarket.org and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. You can RSVP for free, but seats are limited. We do look forward to seeing you there. Next week, we will look at a school that won't let agriculture be secondary, even at the primary level. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa PBS, which is solely responsible for its content.
What's next doesn't happen by chance. It happens when researchers and farmers work together to solve tomorrow's agronomic challenges. We're committed to creating what's next, because at Pioneer, our name is our mission.
Family owned and operated for more than 60 years, Sukup Manufacturing is a full-service provider of grain handling, storage, and drying equipment, helping farmers feed and fuel the world.
Tomorrow. For over 100 years, we've worked to help our customers be ready for tomorrow. Trust in tomorrow. Information is available from a Grinnell Mutual agent today.